No, I guess that I should start my presentation by wishing you a very good evening and a fruitful conference. I'm in a very strange position because I have to talk about the Gaza war 7 days before the planned conference, and I have no idea what will be the situation on the ground 7 days from today. Now I'm in the general area of Kibbutz Nirim. At my back, we can see the Wadi Gaza, Nahar Psor, which is the same river that divides the northern part of the Gaza, the two northern governorates from the two southern governorates of Gaza. And this is the route by which the IDF penetrated the Gaza area, the Gaza Strip, and cut it in two. So I planned to make my presentation from this very important position. The time is Friday, the 24th of November. We are several hours into the ceasefire, and hopefully I'm praying to God that in an hour and a half that our first hostages will be liberated. So when I thought about the topics of my presentation, I decided to put aside everything that looks into the future, which we all know that 7 days in a time of war is basically eternity. And I would like to talk about the past. And talking about the past, I would like to answer two questions. The first question is, how did this strategic surprise happen? How and why succeeded Hamas surprising Israel? And the second question I would like to answer is, why? Why this war? How can we explain this war? Perhaps we'll start by answering the second question. I would like to start to answer the second question, and then I will switch to the first question I have asked. So why this war? Why this war now? And I think that in order to answer this question, we have to address it at three distinct levels. The first level is the global geopolitical level. The second level is the regional level. And the third level is the local bilateral level, the long-term conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. So at the global level, the first thing that must be said about this war broke out because the deterrence of the West collapsed. It collapsed. We have seen this collapse of the deterrence of the West in the Russian-Ukraine war too. And then the question that I have asked myself, if we are talking about a collapse of the regional deterrence or a general deterrence. Now, what we have seen here on October the 7th, we have seen that in yet another region, the collective deterrence of the West collapsed. So what all this says about the other regions, Taiwan, for instance, is anybody's guess. My impression is that the general deterrence of the West has weakened. Perhaps it didn't collapse entirely, but it was weakened in a very significant way by several different reasons. And we will see the consequences of this general weakening in other theaters too. So this is one reason. The other reason is the change in the world order that we are talking about during the last two years very much. And we can see that the United States, which is a global power, but acts very much like a regional power in every region. It dominates as a regional power. And we are seeing a lack of a comprehensive and coherent U.S. Global strategy. We can see it, for instance, in the policy of the U.S. toward Iran. At one hand, we are lamenting the fact that Iran is supporting Russia in its war against Ukraine, and we are lamenting the fact that Iran tries to push out, to evacuate the U.S. influence from the Middle East, but at the other hand, the appeasing of the Iranian power that has started with President Obama goes on undisturbed. It goes on undisturbed. So this lack of coherence in the U.S. Global strategy is another reason that this war broke out. On this another global reason. And the third reason is that we have very many challengers in the different regions. We have seen Russia, we have seen China, we have seen Iran, and perhaps we'll see other challengers too that sense this lack of coherence of the U.S. strategy and senses it as a weakness, and it tries to exploit it. So this is the global explanation why this war broke out. The regional explanation is what I have already mentioned. This conflict, this long crypto war between the United States and Iran from 1979, from the Iranian Revolution. We have seen this war, and we have seen very few occasions when the United States pushed back. It was the praying mantis operation ordered by Ronald Reagan, sinking a third of the Iranian Navy, and we have seen the liquidation of General Qasem Soleimani by President Trump. But besides this, the United States did very, very, very little to push back against this Iranian offensive, and this war in Gaza was just another Iranian provocation in a long line of provocations against the presence and the dominance of the United States and its allies in the Middle East. Now, on the local level, on the bilateral level between Israel and the Palestinians, there are two competing schools of thought. One school of thought insists that the reasons are internal, are Palestinians. Simply the Palestinians sense that with this tsunami of normalizations between Israel and the Arab countries, the Palestinian questions was pushed aside. Was pushed aside. The Arab countries do not want anymore to sacrifice their own interests for the sake of the Palestinians, and they did everything to return the Palestinian issue, the Palestinian problem, to the table, to the forefront of the global attention. This is one explanation. Another explanation why now is a more general one. The Palestinians reacted to the coming normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and they desperately start to stop it. And this was the reason. This was the reason for doing it. And there is a third explanation, that what they wished to do, that they hoped to initiate a kind of chain reaction by attacking Israel, then provoking a violent backlash by Israel, which in its turn will provoke the internal ring of fire, as General Qasem Soleimani defined it. And this internal ring of fire is made up by the Palestinians of Judea and Samaria, of the West Bank, as it is called in English, the Arabs of Israel. They will rise up and they will make the life of Israel much harder. And this in turn, Israel's reaction to this will initiate a second chain reaction by drawing in the external ring of fire made up of Hezbollah, the Iranian-supported militias from Syria, Iranian-supported militias from Iraq, the Houthis from Yemen, and the combined effort of the two rings of fire will collapse the Zionist enterprise. So this was the most ambitious hope of the Palestinians, perhaps, and this is the most ambitious explanation of why now. So until now, we have answered the first question, why this war and why now. Now I have a more difficult task. I will have to answer the question, why this surprise? How this strategic surprise come into being? Now let's proceed to the more difficult task of explaining why this surprise became possible. Why and how? And I believe that in order to answer this question, we have to address it at 4 different levels. The first thing that must be mentioned, that a surprise at a strategic level is a subdiscipline. Those who deal with military theory and strategic studies regard it as a subdiscipline, and we are studying it as a collection of case studies: Pearl Harbor, the Barbarossa attack, the Yom Kippur War, and now this surprise attack are case studies well known in this subdiscipline, and there are great many explanations that explain why intelligence organizations keep failing again and again. Now, these explanations belong mostly to the realm of sociology, psychology, social psychology, organizational science, and similar disciplines. And I think that what we have seen here is not something not terribly different from what we have seen in the other well-known case studies: Pearl Harbor, Barbarossa, the Yom Kippur War. We have seen the same, more or less the same problems, the same pathologies of intelligence collection and the intelligence organization. And there is, it's very sad to say, but there is some banality of the failure here. There are so many ideas floating around regarding the failures of the Israeli intelligence, the over-reliance on technological means of collection, and hybris and overconfidence and arrogance by the higher echelons. I don't want to repeat all these explanations. I believe that most of these explanations are right on their mark, and the only argument that can be made, we can argue about the different proportions that they have contributed to this failure. So this is the professional level, and I think that the failures at this level has to be answered. I firmly believe that a divisional commander, that a divisional intelligence officer doesn't need direct orders from the prime minister or from the minister of defense in order to collect information and to kick and scream if the upper echelons doesn't react to the information reflected by him or her to her higher ups. So this is the failure of the basic, the professional level. The next level of the failure of the October the 7th is the failure of the political and military decision makers. What we call the conception. What was the conception? The conception was very simple: that the Hamas was beaten, it is deterred. What they are concerned is making life better for the Gazan population. They do not want war, and this was the conception, that they don't mean to go to war with us. That was the conception, and it was a very comfortable and very pleasant conception, and it made us blind to the facts that contradict it, like the 2021 Keepers of the Walls operation against Gaza, the Gaza war of 2021. So it should have functioned as a clarion call for us to wake up. We didn't wake up. Then the conception went on till it's collapsed on October the 7th. This was the second level. The third level, it's a much more general level, and we do not talk about this level generally. And I call it the failure of the elites. And it's not a Israeli specialty. The elites, when I'm talking about the failure of the elites, I'm talking about the failure of the elites of the West. We have seen the same failure in the context of the Ukraine-Russia war. We have seen elites that are so enamored by theories of Fukuyama, the end of history, and historical necessities, that it just like the dialectical materialism during the communist years, that the future is predestined, and there is no chance that other societies, other civilizations will reject our way, and our domination, our hegemony reigns supreme in the world. And the Israeli elite subscribed to this false sense of security, and they lulled us into a kind of complacency at the level of the society, not only at the level of the military and the intelligence organizations, but at the level of the society. This was the third level of the failure. And the fourth level is at the level of the Israeli society. I think that we are a society that is enamored by a vision or fata morgana of normalcy, that you can live at this part of the world, which is an entirely abnormal part of the world, and you can live normal lives. We have missed the most elementary wisdom of civis pacem para bellum. Whoever wants peace has to prepare for war. And we have missed the truism that in the 50s and the 60s we subscribed to, that in order to live normal lives in this abnormal part of the world, you have to prepare, and you have to organize your society, your economy, your army, your political life for an abnormal environment. You are a Castel in the jungle, but the jungle is still a jungle. And we try to tell us that the jungle is not so thick anymore, and the branches of the trees are not so intertwined, and there are glimmers of light through the branches of the trees in this jungle. And perhaps this jungle is not a jungle anymore. It's more like a English park, like Kew Gardens. It's not a jungle anymore. So it's a jungle. It's a jungle, and we missed we missed this central wisdom of the previous generations, and we paid dearly for it. So these are the four levels of the failure: at the level of the professional intelligence collectors and analysts, at the level of the military and political decision makers, at the general elites, to which the media, for instance, and the other influencers belong to, and the fourth level of the failure, as I described, is at the level of the Israeli society. So I would like to wind down my presentation, and what I have done, I have answered two basic questions. The first question regards why dealt with the question why this war and why now, and the second question was how this intelligence failure became possible. And I think that my conclusions are not very optimistic, but I think that as long as we draw these conclusions, we can build on them, and we can be much better prepared. And I think that it's very important that those European countries, those Western countries, those Western societies that were still unscathed by the war, prepare for it. Just be prepared. The only way to avoid it is to prepare for it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. And I hope that one day I will be able to make my presentation concluding this war in person. Thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful conference.